On today's hot sheet, I'm discussing housing inventory for the past 7 days. Have we seen an improvement? New home sales just released, and the evolution of the high mortgage rate housing market. Today is Monday, February 23, 2026. I'm Byron Lazine, and the hot sheet starts now. Live from Naples, Florida. I got out of Connecticut last week at the perfect time. It looks like Northeast and I think even some mid-Atlantic, Jersey for sure, dealing with those blizzard conditions. I feel for you. I'm glad I'm not feeling it with you. It's great to be here in Naples, and it's great to be with all of you, wherever you may be tuning in from. Thanks for taking part of your day to spend it with me right here on the hot sheet. Appreciate you. We've got an update here on housing inventory for the past week. The inventory is written up by Logan Mohtashami, the report that he does every single week. Based on the Altos research, we're looking at single family homes. Remember the contradiction last week between what some of the reports that NAR puts out, and they put everything into the same pile: townhouses, condos, single family homes. It lacks context on, where are some of the areas that are improving, and it allows some of these major headlines to run, rampant with, hey, we've got this grouping together and everything is going bad. Well, we know everything's not going bad, and we know there is some small improvements that we want to acknowledge. And a lot of those happen to be single family homes versus the condos and the townhomes. And so I appreciate the separation here that we're going to cover, particularly on inventory as it relates to single family housing. And we're going to start there. We've seen it across the country. If you want lower prices, the areas where inventory is the highest has put the most downward pressure on prices. Southwest Florida, where I sit today, Texas, other parts of the country that have experienced that. And we're looking at this inventory, recovery, and we're looking how significant it's going to be now that we're into the end of February, and we should be getting into that time frame between now and call it 4th of July, where week over week over week, we see an increase in not only new listings, but in inventory as well. Now, I do expect, this report that Logan does references, hey, we made it past that big snowfall that impacted a lot of the country. I do, in fact, believe that next week, when we look at these numbers, there's going to be another semi-adjustment for this storm. These are big storms that if you're in these markets, that big storms, and it's like, if you've got a hurricane, okay, people aren't going out on home tours the next day. If you have a big blizzard like they're experiencing right now in parts of the country, people are canceling listing appointments today. People are canceling home tours. There's a 2, 3, 4 day lag. If power goes out more, and it impacts the market. This is a funny thing about real estate. People's confidence, not only in the market, obviously has an impact on sales, but our customers' just feelings about the day can impact your numbers for the week. Well, nobody feels like going out and doing anything when there's 1 foot, 2 foot of snow on the ground, when things are freezing cold, when wind is gusting, in the middle of a hurricane. Okay. If there's a tornado warning, you think people are going out on home tour? All of these, that's the interesting thing about real estate is there's a lot of groundwork. There's a lot of in the field work, and people are people. Okay. People would prefer to go out home shopping on nice days. Why do you think the spring, before people get distracted with the summer, is such a great time for everybody to be competing against each other? Now, I think if you're trying to get the best deal, it's not always the smartest time, but human nature, it's a big deal on when people are looking at homes, how they're looking at them, and when they're scheduling them. So inventory may take a little bit of a softening next week. But right now we saw this, this early uptick here in February, 10,000 to be exact, 690,000 plus from the same week last year to now over 700,000 on inventory. Inventory growth is now back up to almost double digits, 9.38% versus last year. Remember, we had time periods last year in the heart of the spring where we were upwards of 33% on that gap year over year in comparison to 24. We probably don't get there this year. That would be some extreme inventory that would put us well above 2019 levels if we saw an increase like that. The projections are somewhere between the 10 and 15%. Maybe we get to 15, maybe even 20%. In the heart of the spring market. All of that remains to be seen. These first 2 months typically follow this kind of, sideways movement. And then when you hit March, call it end of February, March, you will see just an upward trajectory all the way into the 4th of July holiday and into the summer before it starts flattening out, call it mid to end of summertime period. So if we get a, kind of a downward move next week, expect the week after that, if this snow really starts to melt in certain parts, that those will impact the rest of the country, you should start to see inventory climb week over week. We're getting into that time period of the year now where inventory is going to move up every single week. More buyers are going to come out every single week, creating more competition. If there's obviously more supply than the competition, it's still going to favor those buyers, but you're going to have more and more buyers enter the market, more and more listings enter the market, and more inventory accumulating. It is more of everything from now until the 4th. Take advantage of that. Okay, this is going to be the biggest breeze that you have. I'm not going to call it a tailwind because the numbers are still low. Well, we're still coming out of the least sales from 1995. All of that remains to be true, but the uptick is at least there. You can't start a multi-year recovery, which is probably what it's going to take if we're being serious after a 4-year real estate recession, without the uptick starting, and we're starting to get there. Okay, new listings here for this past week also recovered quite a bit. If we go to new listings now on single family homes, we saw an increase of almost 8,000 or 6 to 7,000. 60,400 was the new listing read this week, and same week last year, just under 54,000. This was after a couple of weeks where we dropped even below last year's numbers. Again, a lot of it was referenced, to have slowed down because of the weather. So certainly, Northeast, Middle Atlantic, you're going to see less new listings come on to the market this week with the weather being experienced today, and how much of that will impact these national numbers. Okay. But new listings did recover nationally at 60,000. We'd like to get consistency over this level here of 80,000. We only hit that 3 times last year. Okay. So not a lot. New listings have been, on the macro here, they've been really suppressed over the last number of years. Listings that are reducing price, this is down to under 32%. Last year at this time, it was 33%. So, all the doomers that say, whoa, everything's going to fall apart this year. I don't know. Sellers don't seem to have a need to drop below kind of a range of where they want to end up. Like, there's a lot of I'll sell at my number sellers out there, and there's not a lot of sellers that are like, oh, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job like tomorrow and need to sell like yesterday. Okay, there's just not a lot of that going on. Okay, and so despite the lack of maybe demand, certainly we're going to get into the demand on a realtor.com report here. Demand being better than last year. As you can see with the mortgage purchase application index here from the start of the year, but still low demand. Sellers are like, that's fine, but we're not going to just be reducing to get a sale to then go and trade in for potentially a higher rate. Two positive weeks over week, two positive results on mortgage application on week over week. The big one here is 6 weeks of positive year-over-year growth. So basically almost every single week has been to the positive on year-over-year growth for mortgage applications, which is going to be a future pacing statistic to watch for 30, 90 days out. Do those mortgage applications support higher existing home sales? Most times they do. So we'll be watching for that. Pending home sales on the week for single family come in higher. So 59,000 this past week versus 56,000 the same week, a year ago. And we've seen a lot of this on single families. Of course, existing home sales coming in at 3.91 million. And you're seeing all those numbers, worst ever recorded and all this kind of stuff for January. That includes townhomes and condos. We're talking here today about single family homes. Single family homes on most metrics here to start the year have been more positive than at the same time last year, heading in, the right direction, or at least starting to head in the right direction. Long way to go. I'm not trying to make it sound like problem solved, market unlocked. It's going to feel a lot more like last year, but we are heading somewhat in the right direction on single family homes, or starting that trajectory. 30-year, 10-year spread moved up a little bit last week, so 1.94. So, now we're closer to a quarter point away from normal. Normal would be 1.75 on the spread between the 10-year and the 30-year, meaning if the spread continues to improve, which we've seen, almost that number at 1.82 earlier in the year. If we can get that number back down, there's an outside chance we get into the high fives on the 30-year fixed rate. And we did, of course, see an uptick on that spread here over the past week. We'll keep our eyes on that. New sales. Okay. Builders. This is according to the Census Bureau. New builders, new sales. U.S. Census Bureau puts out the report on new residential sales. New houses sold, seasonally adjusted annual rate comes in at 745,000. This is the report as of December. Okay. So a little bit of a lag here in the data, of course. New houses for sale, seasonally adjusted, comes in at 472,000, and the median sale price for new, call it for just under 415,000 on that number. New residential sales is moving down, but if you look, this is above any level we've seen since the very beginning of 2021. So new sales performing basically a little bit better than any time period, while it's moving down here as of late, any time period we've seen since interest rates went up, call it. So where do these sit month over month? New home sales is 1.7% below November, so month over month moves down, and it's 3.8% above the December 2024 rate. So again, sales performing a little bit better, down month over month. Yes, that's where you saw that little tick down on the chart, but really kind of performing better than we've seen since rates moved up. Sales of new single family homes, seasonally adjusted, is 15.5% above the revised October rate. So quite a jump up there. An estimated 670,000 new homes were sold in 25, and it's 1.1% below that rate in 2024. The seasonally adjusted estimate of new homes for sale, so inventory 472,000. It's 2.7% below November. So builders have pulled back slightly on inventory. It's also 3.5% below the same inventory level of last year. That's been a strategic move as builders try to de-risk what's going on in the market, the cost to build, and obviously the demand that they're feeling. So we got 7.6 months of inventory at the current sales rate for builders. It's getting closer to a neutral market for them, still a buyer's market as it relates to new build inventory. At one point, they were up over 9.5 months of inventory. So again, the de-risking, slowing down on permits and starts and these types of things from where they were has helped bring that supply down, that months of supply. It's 1.3 months below November's 2025 estimate of 7.7 or 1.3% below, not 1.3 months, 1.3% below. Really just a tenth of a month off there from month over month. So moving in the right direction for builders. And it's 7.3% below November 2024 estimate of 8.2 months, which was below kind of that peak where they sat up above 9.5 months. The 414,000 is above the November price. So the increase in sales also increased the price. That was 397,000 in November. So there's some decent news right there for builders off of this U.S. Census report on new home sales. Okay. And they've been battling the same battle existing home sales have had over the last 4 years. Realtor.com just put out a report that we are now 4 years. And, think about it. Hey, this time in 2022, everybody knew rates were going to start to pick up. That was the last hot spring market before the rates really did skyrocket when Jerome Powell realized that inflation was not, in fact, transitory. 4 years into the high rate era, the housing market has changed. And why prices didn't reset is the analysis that Realtor.com has done here. So if you just kind of look at how uneven this recovery has been in different regions, let's take a look first at active listings and median list price versus median list price per square foot. Okay. If we look at the US, active listings, since these interest rates went from basically 3 to over 6, overnight, which was one of the most dramatic upward shifts on interest rates we've ever seen. It was so fast and knee-jerky because of the mistakes that really the government made in printing too much money and the Fed made in waiting too long to recognize where inflation truly was. And they had to go really fast because really bad things would happen if they didn't. It was the fastest rate upwards on rates. And so it was a shock to the market. Real estate took the brunt of that shock. We went into real estate recession over the last, the better part of the last 4 years. And active listings across the U.S. increased dramatically over this time period, 142%, still just below 2019 levels. So making up the low inventory that we experienced during COVID. Median list price, though, with this increase in rates, the cost to finance a home, and then this increase in listings, one would have guessed, prices have got to go down, yet median list price moves up 8.1% over the last 4 years across the U.S. Median list price per square foot moves up 11.5%. Okay, the Northeast and the Midwest have the biggest increases on price, 15 and 22% respectively, because their active listings didn't get anywhere close to what the South and the West did. Northeast active listings over the last 4 years only moves up 22.4%. Northeast, a severe lack of building of supply, new supply entering the market, results in only 22.4% active listing change over the last 4 years. And then the Midwest had a 67% increase, but nothing like what you see nationally or in the South or the West. The South has a 213% active listing change, means median list price only went up 7.4%. The West has a 180% increase on active listings, and list price only moves up 2.2% there. So you definitely have a, difference between the four regions, Northeast and Midwest, in a much different spot than the South and the West. And then you look at regionally here, the change in active listings versus median list price per square foot over these last 4 years, and how the Hartfords and New York Cities, where they just don't build, you have a much higher increase on median list price per square foot, versus places like Tampa, Nashville, how much those active listings have increased. Nashville, Tampa, up over 400% on active listings. Denver and Austin, up in that range. Dallas, not far behind, okay? Phoenix, up over 300%. Seattle, up over 300%. You're in the negatives when you look at, which is crazy. You're in the negatives when you look at Hartford and New York City, and Chicago's at 0, okay? Now, Chicago hasn't had that kind of a bump on price as a Hartford and New York City. But again, you know, Hartford, Milwaukee, New York, these areas are, you know, in some of these cases, negative on the listings, which is just crazy for other markets to think about. So you have a real difference in markets across these 4 years, and how they're dealing with this lock-in effect. And it really comes down to which markets have made it easier for builders, okay? Which markets have at least created a regulatory environment for builders that they can go and take the risk. Some of these markets I'm talking about, you have low construction, and it's not just migration patterns, okay? Because there's a lot of millennials that want to be in those markets. It's not just the fact that migration patterns over the last decade have supported Sunbelt states versus these other markets. It's the fact that it's so expensive, so high on the regulations for these builders to go out there and take the risk and build in these markets, okay? So 4 years of a real estate a recession since rates have gone up. Rates have climbed as high as near 8%, really 7.8% since January 2022. We're currently down into the low sixes. This is good for starting the recovery. You've also got certain markets that have already come down into a more of an affordable range because of their inventory as well. So some signs for some buyers in some markets are improving. And there you go. Let's take a look at some of the major markets. Only 8 major metros have posted declines in list price per square foot. So prices have held really steady in most markets outside of San Francisco, Austin, Denver, San Jose, San Antonio, DC, Sacramento, and Miami. And that's on list prices. I know some of these markets, Southwest Florida here, you're going to see actual sales move lower. Price per square foot are higher in 42 of the major markets. Okay. Cleveland's up 34%, Milwaukee and Buffalo and Providence, Virginia Beach, Hartford, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Indianapolis, Richmond, and New York City, all up huge double-digit numbers on these list price per square feet metrics. And new listings versus active listings. Here are the ratios over the past 4 years. Okay, so January new listings to active listings, 85% increase. 2023, so that was 22. 2023, 46%. 24, 44%. 25, 39%. 36% this past January in 26. Median days on market has increased really over this time period, 59 days back in January 22 to now 78 days. So we're just getting back to a more normalized market. Here's delistings as a share of listings, according to this Realtor.com report. Back in January of 2022, you only had 3.1% of active listings delisting, 7% now here today. And when you go to new listings, okay, only 8.4% in 22 of new listings would delist, 32% today. So 1 out of 3 new listings are delisting. They're either saying, we didn't understand what the market conditions were going to bring, as we entered the market, we're not comfortable with those conditions and we're pulling back. Number one. Number two, they're delisting because they are now saying we're not confident in the plan or the process that we've launched, meaning we're not confident in the person we hired or the strategy that we took, or the process that we have to go and stay on the market. We're going to pull off, take a beat here, new strategy. If you're at war and your entire front line, I'm not very educated on war, so I'm going to sound like an idiot, but your entire front line gets wiped out immediately. It's probably like retreat. Okay. Retreat, come back. Let's re-strategize. I don't think that worked out too well for us. And so, they're going to the market and saying, man, strategy's off, process is off, or we had no idea market reaction, supply demand dynamics, and we're going to pull back. We're going to retreat here and we're going to regroup from the market. So delistings extremely high, really important to have, a strategy going on to the market, because let's face it, if you're a seller and you've been on the market, off the market, on the market, off the market, on the market, off the market, to me, that's 3 blemishes on your record. Man, the sellers are inconsistent. Do they really want to sell? Is there something wrong with the house? Why haven't other buyers at least negotiated a deal with them? Why don't other buyers like it? I want to buy something that other people want. I learned a long time ago, buy real estate in the best areas in which you're looking. Okay. I want, if I care about the value long-term, okay, other people got reasons for buying properties and all of that. But if I care about the value long-term, I want to protect and maximize value and appreciation. I want the best areas. I want to buy things that other people want. Not everybody's going to want it, but I want to buy things that most other people would want, that most other people would overpay for. If I'm willing to pay a lot for it, somebody else is willing to pay a lot for it. Okay. And so, if I'm thinking, of going to the market right now as a seller, I got to have a really good strategy. Now, they're getting to the market and they're not feeling it. They're not feeling the strategy. 1 out of 3 are actually coming off the market. I think this is an area for agents across the country to fill in that knowledge gap with the sellers, because those are all blemishes. Those are all little zits on a baby face. Okay. You were pure. You were going to the market, smooth skin, and then boom, a blemish pops up. I get it. It's part of life, but if people have their preference, they're going pimple free. If you've got your preference on your listing, eliminate the blemishes, have a real strong strategy, walk your seller through the frameworks that are important to really contextualize what getting to the market means. Now, that doesn't mean, telling everybody not to ever sell until it's so certain. It's just having the right strategy for this market, of course, because some people are going to have to sell and have to enter the market under the conditions that we're in right now. All right. One of the buyers, I guess, with the most advantage right now is going to be these cash buyers. Our friends over at Zudilio has got an update for us here over the past week on where cash is flooding to Atlanta, Miami, DMV area. You've got Tampa and Vegas in the top 5, Houston, Dallas, Jacksonville, Orlando, and Riverside, California. That is where cash is flooding into, according to our friends over at Zudilio. You can get access to Zudilio cash offer platform by just becoming a member of BAMX, which you can try for free over the next 7 days. Once you pass your free trial, you get to unlock Zudilio. Go to school.com/BAMX. All right. 10-year treasury. A lot of, I talked about it on When did I talk about it last week? I talked about the, the tariff decision, I think, on knowledge brokers, because I think it came out right at the start of knowledge brokers last week. Go check out knowledge brokers if you haven't already, separate channel. And boy, does that decision offer up a lot of uncertainty. The administration is seemingly still trying to push against or find loopholes, rather, to what a Supreme Court decision was at the end of the week. I've often said tariffs are a light switch. They can be used as leverage in a negotiation, which really kind of worked in a lot of these trade agreements. But now at this point that, it's clear that there is, a political fight over these, tariffs, and continuing to push is going to create uncertainty and volatility. And so you're seeing, some volatility in the markets. The markets entered today in the red. Now you also have volatility in different countries across the globe. Okay. Our neighbors to the south, obviously over the last 24 hours, having just, some volatility there. You've got the Iran thing going on. All of these things are going to create uncertainty in the market. Now that the war stuff kind of supports lower 10-year. I'm not rooting for war, but that's just kind of based on history. 10-year right now coming in at 4.056. It is, with all this volatility that we're seeing, the 10-year is down a tick. Okay. So I don't know. There you go on that. It might support a lower 30-year fixed. We saw a very consistent week last week. We had the President's Day holiday, and we've had a reading since last Friday in the very low sixes. Okay, we have a 10-year down today, and maybe we even get to the high fives. We'll have to wait and see on that. Fed watch is unchanged here from Polymarket. 96% chance that in 22 days there will be no change to the federal funds rate. All right, there's your hot sheet here to kick off this week. If you are in the blizzard, stay safe. Remember, a lot of your clients, customers probably are home today if you're making calls. I always knew snow days would be high answer rate days. But stay safe out there. For the rest of the country, you've got an opportunity to get more listings between now and July 4th. You're going to see an increase in new listings and inventory. Go take advantage of it. Good luck today, everybody. I'll see you back here tomorrow morning. Until then, toodaloo.